10 days after announcing that he would recommend the immediate ban of ride-hailing apps. Transport Minister Darrell Vaz advised that the ban failed to materialize after telecommunication providers failed to accede to a request from the government. In a directive on June 4, Minister Vaz instructed telecoms providers Digicel and Flow to restrict ride-sharing applications from accessing their respective platforms. He says since the announcement of the ban, to date, only one telecoms provider has responded.
I received a formal response from one telco 6 days later on the 10th, and one I have yet to get a response from. And in discussions, both have indicated an unwillingness to block the apps on the basis that there is no legislation in place. I feel very strongly that any minister of government who sees or deems an issue as a national security risk, that legislation should be in place, and it should be clear and definitive that it is an instruction and an order, not a request. And I will be moving to have discussions with the Minister of National Security and my cabinet to make sure that this is done in the shortest possible time.
That's Darrell Vaz, the Minister in charge of Telecoms and Transport. He says he's contemplating the establishment of regulations that will prevent telecoms companies from denying requests from the government which seeks to protect national security. And he noted that at present then there is effectively no ban on ride-sharing apps.
And in a release to the media on Friday, Minister Vaz advised commuters to exercise caution while engaging ride-sharing companies until there is legislation in place to properly regulate their operations in the country. The minister says local ride-sharing companies are allowed to continue operating while the Transport Authority continues to develop those regulatory framework. And meanwhile, the opposition spokesman on transport, Michael Phillips, is criticizing the government for its failure to properly restrict ride-sharing applications operating in the island. Mr. Phillips joins us now. Good morning to you.
Morning to you. Morning to your listeners.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Nationwide this morning. What do you make of the latest developments in relation to the ride-hailing apps and their operators?
Well, we would have expected that the minister would have, when coming to Parliament to do his sectoral presentation and make the announcement, would have done all of the legal checks before making such an announcement. On Thursday, we issued a press release asking for an update because we got reports from persons within our society that they were able to still access the ride-sharing apps, while some other local operators made the claim that they're still blocked from utilizing their apps. So hence we asked for an update from the minister. The minister giving the update that it hasn't been. So, we're hoping that the minister would quickly put some short-term measures in place in how to regulate it. This could have been avoided from 2019 once we established that there were ride-share or ride-hailing operations in Jamaica. And, we encouraged the then minister to put in legislation to manage that operations. We do encourage, as an opposition, I've said it repeatedly, that we do encourage competition in the market, utilization of technology, but they ought to abide by the laws and rules of the land.
Do you think the approach that the minister took to come to Parliament and say that he's recommending the ban on the apps, was that the right one?
Well, seeing the minister would have had more information than I had, and I know that for quite a while there has been a national security issue. It was heavy-handed, at that moment. Yes, we supported it because, from day one I've always and consistently said that no matter which company comes into operate in Jamaica, they ought to abide by the law of the country. And that also, as it is now, there is no protection for the traveling public in it. You have operators operating that would not have the same vetting process as those who are in the public transport sector. And I think we have a responsibility to the consumer themselves and also the protection of an industry. So hence we supported it under that a temporary halt of the operation until some measures are put in place. We would have supported a 1 year, but we do feel that there are some short-term measures that can be put in place until a wider range of legislation is thought of and tabled in Parliament.
The opposition spokesman on transport is with us, Michael Phillips. The question of regulations of a service such as taxi services, there is the strong argument that when people create apps to provide access to services that already exist, governments have to be careful about regulation so that you don't stifle free enterprise, you don't stifle free creativity. Is that a point you agree with in principle, Michael Phillips?
Yes, I do. As I said, ride-hailing is somewhat new to Jamaica in the sense that, operating by an app, there's no legal office set up for the operation in Jamaica. We ought to, within the regulation itself, to encourage technology that more can enter the space. But also, it will give us an opportunity to look at the regulations that we have that governs the public transport sector itself. In some instances, heavy-handed in some. We can over-regulate. Mm-hmm. And I think this is an opportunity for us to really look at regulations, because sometimes we make it more difficult for persons to operate within the space than ought to.
Yeah.
So, yes, I take the point. As I said, that we expect some short-term measures. We have made the suggestion that there ought to be a vetting process for the drivers, just like those within the public transport sector. So, some agreement has to be made with the owners of the app that persons registered to, that at least they go through the vetting process of providing a police record, just like those in the public transport space now, mm-hmm. and issued a badge by the transport authority. Now, this gives the transport authority and the process itself for a shorter period of time, how it is that you can speed that up, because one can register an app within an hour,
yes,
and get approved. So how do you now are able to speed up the process so that it doesn't take days to get that badge? Ensuring that all the legislation is in place to have passengers covered by the insurance of these of the persons who are now registering on the app and operating with these ride-hailing companies.
Here's why I put that point to you mm-hmm. early, because I'm in the conversation about why the relevant regulations weren't in place at the start of the wave of taxi apps, let's call them that. I was reasoning to myself to say, well, any government in charge of a country won't want to present an obstacle to free enterprise, won't want to present an obstacle to creativity. And it's not as if there's a new service being provided or created. What is happening is that you can access existing services in a new way. And so a group of university students come together and say, boy, let's create an app called Food to Go. Or let's call Michael's Taxi then, for argument's sake. And what will happen is that rather than having to call a taxi with credit that you may not have, or get a taxi otherwise. You go on this app and you can get one. So at the start, because I'm trying to, there's a conversation about why the regulations weren't in place before, and it may be that consideration, which was perhaps blind to the things that are causing the problems we're talking about now, that approach is what created the environment for so many apps to have come up over time in the taxi business into a space that there is no regulation.
Well, you have local companies that operate a similar app, but had to go through the process as a route taxi.
But those are normally tied to brick and mortar companies who are extending their reach into the social media space. So those are usually tied to brick and mortar operations. For instance, On Time has an office in the Halfway Tree area. El Shaddai has an office, just to name a few, and the ones that we are used to over time. So yeah.
You have 876 who basically, I mean, it's really
purely app based.
An app. Yes,
yeah.
It's an app that they operate, through. They have their operations here in Jamaica, and they operate in a similar operation or access, just like the Uber or the InDrive. So I think what happened is that we basically just moved too slow at where technology is concerned.
Yeah.
And putting in legislation or regulations themselves to manage those, because I keep on saying, when persons say, "Why am I siding with the minister on that one?" We also have to be a responsible opposition and a responsible government in waiting. And there's also not just the responsibility of bringing new players in the space, but also a responsibility to the protection of the consumer.
Yes.
At the same time.
And when
if anything was to happen to a passenger in one of these vehicles who have had a rideshare vehicle, as the police said, there's nothing in place, no legislation, no regulations in place for them to take action.
Yes. And as the minister in waiting, what I want is to get from you is this point. Even as you don't want to be obstructionist in the ways that we have agreed, blocking creativity and so forth, for certain activities such as transporting people, where you made the point about insurance kicking in and the badge and the antecedents of the driver, you would expect a government to move to put regulations in place where the creation of certain apps for certain activities are concerned, even as you want to make the environment a hindrance free for the creation of access to services.
Yes, certainly, and I think we have to be forward thinking, because even these apps, as I said, it was not created just yesterday or when the minister made the announcement in Parliament. There were two ministers prior to him who were there when the entrance of these operators within the space itself, and it was really just a cloak over their eyes of ignoring that they're operating in the space, because there was no real national issue in dealing with it. I mean, we raised it in Parliament in 2019, 2020. About the regulations and just the safety of the consumer itself. So, the administration has to take some responsibility of where we are now with it. But there are other apps that's been entering the space itself, and having to ensure that not only that we make it an environment for them to operate, and something that, as we have been saying earlier, not to be an hindrance, but how to create a space for creativity and for technology, and also at the same time protection of the consumer is where we need to go.
And speaking of ignoring and creating the right environment for them to operate, on the weekend as well, Mr. Phillips, the minister disclosed to us that the telecommunications providers in Jamaica have basically ignored the recommendation that he made to have this ban until they've sorted out that environment for that sub-transport sector. Was it wrong for the telecoms people to take that approach, to say, not banning right now?
Well, I'm more concerned of how it is that the minister could come to the parliament and to make an announcement without doing the proper legal checks. I mean, in his presentation in Parliament, he actually said, if you go back to the recording, that he'll be ordering a ban, but he has not done the legal checks, and then he went ahead and issued the ban. If I were the Prime Minister, I'd be concerned on what else would the minister be doing in the ministry.
You've said he should be fired, Michael Phillips. You've said Vaz should be fired for what he said in the Parliament, haven't you?
He should be. I mean, it is irresponsible of any minister to come to the Parliament and to make an announcement like that without doing any legal checks. We would, if we were to make everything an announcement without putting any real tangible changes, then everything would have changed in the country already.
But based on the grounds that he said it, he was advised by the Jamaica Constabulary Force of certain things, came to the Parliament and has told the nation that it's national security risk on which he's making this recommendation. Wasn't that a reasonable ground to ask for a temporary ban?
Well, it would have to take a multiple sectoral approach on who it is. There's an Attorney General Department, for them to guide the government itself on what is legal from what is not illegal. The point I'm making, I'm not saying that it is not the right of the minister to make the announcement. I said we also agreed with the minister, but there's a process to take place. So you can't be turning it back now on the telecoms company to act outside of the law themselves too, because there may be other legal issues that they would have to deal with the operators of the apps themselves if they go outside of the law. So the point we're making is that the minister has to be more responsible when he's making utterances like that.
On the point of responsibility and utterances, Michael Phillips, let's zero in on it. So here's the thing. He announced in Parliament that he's recommending a ban. He read from a letter that he had written to one of the telecoms providers. The effect of the words in the Parliament caused one of the rideshare apps that was in the line of fire regarding a police investigation to make contact with the authorities. That speech in Parliament also brought the stakeholders to the table, where they've crafted a set of regulations that they have submitted to him, and he's reviewing now, waiting to put into action. So you're saying that the effect of those words, notwithstanding what has germinated from what he said in Parliament, significant grounds for the Prime Minister to ask Minister to relieve him of his duties?
Look, if you understand legislation and understand the rule of law, then that means that any minister can go out there and close down or do anything as they feel like without following the rule of law. We sit in Parliament and we make the law. It is not for any minister or anyone to flaunt the law in that manner, no matter what. Yeah? We are there to protect those that follow the law. Right? So it as much as it is something that is of national importance, the responsible thing to do is for the minister to contact the Attorney General's department, to contact his own legal department. He himself said that he's making this announcement without checking the legal ramification of it. That I was surprised about, and expected that the minister would have set a date for the temporary ban after finding out which minister or ministry can order that ban. Yeah, I'm not saying that it cannot be made, but which minister or ministry, which one within the ambit of the law that can do it.
So you're saying that the minister effectively didn't understand his brief then?
Didn't understand his responsibility.
Hear you on that. Thank you this morning for the perspective, Michael Phillips. Always appreciate it.
You're welcome.
That's the opposition spokesman on transport, Michael Phillips. We are waiting to make contact with the head of King Alarm, John Azar, consequent upon information that King Alarm workers are, well, they're restive or they've taken industrial action. The report suggests that they've not turned up for duties. They're not honoring their duties as expected on this day, and so it's causing severe disruption for those who they provide the services to. And so we want to know from John Azar what is happening in Tana's favorite word, in the space. Yeah, so we're waiting to make that connection. Tana, from this morning, one of the things that some of our contributors and our partners in the social media space are not getting is the issue. Oh, we have a okay. Oh, we're trying to get, can I tell? Yeah, we're trying to get Tana, one of the workers, who will speak to us on condition of anonymity, Mr. King. Yeah, so we won't disclose his or her name, but they'll tell us why it is that they've withdrawn their services this morning, and we're getting that person online anytime now. So I'll reserve those comments until later on. I was about to share with you. 7:52 on this Monday morning, and we're locked in now. Hold on. All right, so we're getting that individual online in very, very short order. King Alarm is having some problems this morning. Workers very unhappy, and they've effectively downed tools, at least for this morning, and they need to hear from their boss as to how their grievances will be addressed. Yeah? Ready? Oh, what a long phone call. We're on 188 number. Yeah, so we're making touch. And then we hope to, after we speak with the worker, we hope to get John Azar online as well. It's very rare that you hear these service providers having any problem significant enough for them to withdraw their services. So we're very keen to hear why. Producer is working feverishly behind the glass.
And
We're
worker
ready.
is on now.
Yes, we're ready.
Good morning to you.
Yes, morning. It's got a bit noisy out here, so I'm not even hardly even hearing
We hear you clearly, man. You hearing us? Hello?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear, loud and clear. You hearing us?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, man. What's happening where you are?
Yeah, we are conducting a peaceful protest here
Where?
for at 1 Caledona Avenue, King Alarm, head office.
Yes.
That's where we're at just now.
That's near the JDF headquarters.
Yeah, across from the JDF headquarters.
Yes. Why? Why are you protesting?
All right, we are protesting for more salary, the working condition, and no victimization, humiliation, and etc.
And etc.
Do a career service in a staffing vehicle. Plus, we are not getting paid. We're not fully compensated to do such a job. Plus, I think this company is totally doing their own thing, not following the guidelines of the labor law.
Oh.
We don't get paid for overtime. We don't get time and off. Understand me? And the signals and the workload is way too much for the salary that we're getting.
How many of you are out there protesting? How many are you out there protesting? About how much? 20? Huh?
Yeah, about 20.
About 20. Right. So tell me about the pay issue now. What's the problem you have with the pay?
We are not being paid properly, sir. You have a raise that is stipulated for the 1st of June. Some people that get paid that are favorably, and the others that are being victimized do not get paid. So we don't get that increase. We don't get that increase that we're supposed to get. So we are being overworked, and we have been victimized, humiliated, and being disrespectful. The working condition is very unacceptable.
Tell me about that. Tell me about the working conditions. Give me some specifics.
We don't even get lunch. We don't even have base. Where if we want to ease ourselves, we have to go to other people's place to beg for that. We should not be so. We should have a base where we're being properly recuperated when we're on a rest break. And I don't even talk about rest break because we don't get rest break.
So hold on. So the King Alarm people that we see riding around, driving around, if you want to get a little break to relieve yourself, you have to beg somebody to use their facilities?
Exactly. That's what we have to do.
And there's no provision at headquarters for you to go and take a 5 and, use the bathroom, use the restroom?
Nothing like that. Nothing like that. Some of the time you have so much signals that you can't even move. And the signals, they are given like 15 minutes to respond. You have teams doing like over 150 response per night. A whole lot. So sometimes signals. So if you don't reach the signal within 15 minutes, that is the time that the managing director tells. This is the time that he gives the client within 15 minutes. So when you have all these signals coming in on you, it's like you can't do anything. And if something should happen at a specific location and you are not there, you are going to be penalized for that. After a gentleman, one of our co-workers, he went to a property the other night, and because he checked the wrong place, the building was built underneath, there is a basement, and the basement was where the signal coming from, and he checked the second floor. And he was penalized, sent home for 7 days because he checked, and the client said that he checked the wrong place. There is no consideration for us as workers, and we need to highlight that workers have rights too. We are being forced to work, do courier. We are a response team, and we are being forced to do courier service. If in Sofkin's vehicle we are not covered under courier to do courier service, and they are calling 2 persons that is supposed to check a location, asking them to do a courier pickup. When you say that you cannot do the courier pickup, you are being called by management, penalized, sent home for all these things. We have rights too, and you can't go pick up a client money in our Sofkin's vehicle. You must be prepared and catered for properly to do that. So we are having a whole lot of issues here at King Alarm.
Hold on. So tell me something. So the patrol or response team different from the courier team, right?
Yes, sir.
So hold on now. And it's 2 different monies, right?
No. Yes, the money is different. The courier team should be
but you don't get it. So hold on. So if you're a patrol response team and you do courier work, you don't get courier pay.
No, you don't get the pay. All they do is say it comes with your work. So once it is King Alarm work, so if once you're doing King Alarm work, it is okay. But we are saying no, you have to be properly covered. You have to be paid for it. They want the response team to do that. And we already have a lot of work. The magnitude of work that we have to do as a response to go around.
So
sometimes in the rain, in the sun, we have to do work.
Who humiliated you? You say humiliation. Tell me about the humiliation.
All right. We are currently on the verge of getting a union on board to protect us. The managing director and the general manager, Mr. Delano Berger, called me in the other day and asked me, he told me that he has links everywhere and he realized that persons going to a specific union to be unionized and him don't want it here. So because of that, up to today, I don't have a work right now because they tell me by 5 o'clock last week, Friday, I'm not supposed to show up. So I am under victimization. Some of the team leaders on response, they were demoted because they are on the list for the union. So we are having a whole lot of big challenges here. Team leaders are now demoted because they heard that the person is on the list to go on the union. So they are trying to victimize us. So we decided this morning that we have to come to the street because we need this thing to highlight because we met with the managing director and we are not getting anything.
That's Mr. Azar? That's Mr. Azar?
That's Mr. Azar. We met with him on the 7th of June, that's last week. We met with him. He said that he would give us 10% increase. We got paid Friday. When we got paid, some persons got the increase, and we requested 30%. That's what we believe that we should get after all. We're working very hard.
So hold on. You asked for 30%, yet when the increase comes, some people get it, but only 10 them get.
The 10% is the original minimum wage, 7.5. So apparently he put 2.5 on it. I don't know. But some people got, based on their calculation, they got 10%.
So how do they determine who get the 10% and who don't get it?
Some people, some of the workers, same response some of the response personnel got the 10%, some don't get any, like me. I'm talking for myself, I don't get it, and I know specifically other members who don't get it. So it is a trick.
Yes.
And we are tired of these things.
All right. Hold the line for me. My producer will get some more information from you. After the break, you can listen to the radio because John Azar is coming to speak. All right?
Yes, and we need a journalist down here because I want to humiliate a sore point here of a humiliation. What had happened to me when they send me on a location and I ask if there's any dogs there and they tell me there is no notation of dogs there. And what happened when I go there, dogs, the man must kill me. 2 big pit bulls. You understand? I have to retreat so fast. Then after that happened, them humiliate me on the parade and send me on my yard when me come for work. Tell me now I give them a written report. That's how these people operate. Use them eager to make decisions on a day-to-day basis in operation. And using might to victimize us as employees.
Well, all right, gentlemen, hold it together there. We're going to hear from John Azar after the break. All right, hold the line. Hold the line.
You heard from some disgruntled workers there at King Alarm expressing that they've been working under poor working conditions, having salary issues as well as in terms of their duties overlapping, doing security work as well as courier work, which they say is not how it's supposed to be done. Joining us now for a response to the disgruntled workers and what they've said is the managing director of King Alarm, John Azar. Mr. Azar, good morning to you.
Morning, Tona. Morning, George, and good morning to your listeners.
Morning, John.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Nationwide this morning. One of your workers was on now representing about 20 of them, saying that they're working under really poor working conditions, not able to use the restrooms at their own working facilities. Any truth to that? They can't use the restrooms, they say.
Can't use restrooms at where? I'm sorry.
At their own place of work.
They say there's no base for them to relieve themselves after they've been on the road. They have to go ask other people running other companies to give them a bly.
All right. Well, I don't know what reality the persons you're speaking to are living in, but let me start by saying this. Every single worker's voice is important to me. Every single one. That being said, King Alarm currently employs approximately 5,000 members of staff. And from what I've heard, because I'm currently off the island, there were somewhere between 9 and 11 persons expressing their rights, maybe in a manner I would feel inappropriate, but it certainly is their right to express their concerns. But at the end of the day, I would want to firstly assure you, before answering any questions you may have directly, that our operation remains totally unaffected. At present, we have over 2,000 persons on duty. Across the island, we have a number of special operations taking place, and our operation is unaffected. That being said, in relation to the concerns of 9 or 10 or 11 persons, I'd be certainly happy to answer any questions, specific questions that you may have based on what they may have.
And that first question is the issue of their working conditions, where they're saying there's no base, no place for them at their workplace for them to use, to relieve themselves, no restroom facilities where they can go to.
Well, I have absolutely no idea what that is. I mean, in addition to our offices across the island, we have a number of response bases in various zones. I certainly don't know of any King Alarm officer who is unable to access a restroom facility. So that's certainly news to me.
There's also the concern they're raising about their duties overlapping. They're saying that persons carrying out security work, that duty is supposed to be separate from those who are doing the courier services, but they find that a lot of them, their duties are overlapping. They're doing both when that shouldn't be the case, and then they're not being paid separately for doing both.
Well, I suspect the individual in question, I suspect who has said that. But let me say to you clearly that our conditions for armed response officers in relation to their duties has been the same since our formation 24 years ago. So response officers who take up duty or come into interviews are fully aware that their duties are wide-ranging. Our armed response teams deal with a variety of matters. They deal with responding to hold-ups, they deal with burglaries, they deal with medical emergencies, the ones that are so trained. They do deal with cash-in-transit services. So while we have specific cash-in-transit teams, there will be times where some of our other teams are asked to assist in that regard. And I want to be clear, while I'm not avoiding any of your questions, from an operational point of view, I'm sure you can appreciate there are certain operational details I wouldn't want to get into simply because I don't want to compromise the security of our personnel or our overall operation. But in answer to that specific question, I'm certain it happens from time to time. I'm certain it's fully in keeping with their contracts of employment, and I'm certain that there's absolutely nothing there that I would say is untoward, different, or anything that I would have any concerns with, put it that way.
And does their contract say, for example, those who are carrying out the security services and responding to medical concerns and otherwise, does their contract say that when they should respond to or carry out courier services, is there supposed to be an additional payment that comes to them that after that 2 weeks or that month of their salary?
No, there's absolutely nothing in the practice that runs contrary to their contract of employment. And as I say, that's a practice that has taken place from our inception in 1999. There's been absolutely no change whatsoever there. So there's nothing taking place in that regard that runs counter to their employment contracts.
The issue of the pay increase granted to them, John Azara, they said that they asked you for a 30% raise. That was denied, but some people were given a 10% raise, but not everybody. Can you explain why some people got the raise and others didn't?
Yeah, well, let me be a bit clear again, George. There are some persons, believe it or not, and this may cause an even more disquiet, who got 30% and someone who got 42%. So let's be very clear in talking about salaries. There's a government-mandated increase in minimum wage which took place June the 1st. None of these persons, meaning no armed response officer at King Alarm, is earning close to the minimum wage. They're all earning significantly above. So that government-mandated increase did not mandate us to increase their salaries. That being said, we took a decision to grant an increase across the board, a minimum of 10% and an increase in some instances higher. So you have persons who got 10%, you got persons 12, 14, 15, 19, 22, 30. One particular individual got 42% based on a number of factors of his performance. As I said in a meeting I held a week ago with our response officers, the only exceptions would be certain persons who it was felt for whatever reason, and you can read between the lines here, was not deserving of an increase, but they were already getting significantly above the minimum wage. So in such an instance, there's no government mandate for me to increase the salary of somebody who, let us say, for example, is non-performing or doesn't represent certain values that we represent. I'm not speaking specifically to any of these 9 persons. I'm making a general statement.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew in granting increases there would be a handful of persons who would not have been very happy, while there had been a significant majority of persons who would have been very happy. So I'm not overly surprised, but I will say I hope I answered your question in that, yes, there may have been a small amount of persons who by deliberate intent did not get a salary increase because we have very high standards at King Alarm, and persons who are not meeting that, we need to be very clear in our dialogue and direction with them that until you meet a certain standard, we're not going to reward you in the same way that we would reward others.
And on the point of clarity, John, on the point of clarity, you're saying that the salary increases ranging from 10 to 42%. It was not restricted to just supervisory and management employees across the board.
No, there was absolutely no management employees got any increase. We're only speaking about the armed response officers. There's no increase granted to any member of our management team or any admin staff. This is specific to armed response officers, which is a small minority of persons who we're discussing here.
Give me an idea of how many officers we're talking about. About 30. About you have 5,000 employees. You say how many would have benefited from it?
The last time I was updated from the office about 5 minutes before you called.
Yes.
It was, I think, 11 persons. 11
persons. All right. So the issue of the very concerning accusation now, John Azar, of union busting. They say that they mentioned an individual by name. We don't have any evidence that he's actually the one, so we won't repeat his name. But they say one individual, a part of your management team, has been interfering with their attempts to organize themselves into a union. I want to hear your response to that, along with the broader point of what's King Alarm's policy on their guards getting union representation.
Okay, so I can't speak to any other management team member unnamed at this time. I can say specifically, from our perspective, we recognize the rights of workers to do as they please, which includes to seek representation. So in a meeting that I held with the staff, as I said, I think about 10 days ago now, I made it very, very clear I've always been one of the most accessible managing directors, I'd say, in a company. That's the staff and the clients. And at the end of the day, if people feel the need to have a third party communicate with me, then that certainly is their right to do. I would certainly think that the vast majority of our staff understand, agree, and accept that King Alarm is a place where they can express their views, and the management of the company led by me is always extremely accessible to our staff. So at the end of the day, I don't know of any possible thought of union busting. But I can say to you though, George, and again, I'm always very open, but I need to be cautious with certain things. I don't want to compromise other matters, is that you may have an individual, again, I'm speaking hypothetically here, I'm not speaking in specifics, who is not performing, who the company is not happy with, and that individual is well aware of it. He may try to organize others, whatever, and maybe just the company's general disciplinary procedures against that individual for their actions can be misread as whatever else. Mm-hmm. But I will end where I started, that 9 persons, 10 persons, 11 persons represent a tiny, tiny, tiny minority of 5,000 plus members of staff. However, I will still say every single staff member's voice is important.
Yeah.
So I'll ensure our management team meet with these individuals.
Yeah.
I want to say one other thing, George, which is important.
Yes.
There's one other individual there who I'm not sure at this time is employed to King Alarm.
You did say he was fired.
He wasn't. I don't know about that. I don't know who you're speaking about. If an employee does not sign an employment contract and is told until you sign it, refrain from taking on duty. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I'm just saying to you, let's keep away from the specifics of the case. But every single employee's voice is important to me.
Lastly, John, on that point, we're out of time. So for those who are in your employ, who would have joined and have joined the action taking place now, should they be in fear that they're going to be fired as a result of speaking out?
Absolutely not. They may get better treatment. If I was in the island, I'd meet with them myself. I'll ensure our senior managers meet with them this morning to hear their concerns again, reiterate our position if there are no new concerns, and hopefully they can join the other 4,900 and whatever the math is, who are out there in our uniform, upholding our values and working hard to safeguard our clients.
Hear you on that. Thank you this morning, John Azar.
Always a pleasure, and thanks for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, Donna.
All right, John Azar there, the man in charge of King Alarm. A few officers disgruntled and they've taken to the streets out there. I see somebody in the chat saying that they're blocking up traffic. Boy, them people are easy, you know. The man, them ventilate them growls and you're quarrel because them blocking you from going about your business. Although it's your right as well. You're going about your business. I can't complain about that.